The inquiry into foreign interference continued this week. Of course, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau among those testifying. And the story about foreign interference in this country, well, it broke last year thanks in part to our next guest. Sam Cooper is founder and first journalist of The Bureau and part of those journalists that uncovered this story. Sam, thanks for coming back on the show.
Great to talk with you.
So what I'd like to do first here, before we get into the Prime Minister, not every Canadian can sit down and watch this entire foreign interference inquiry, and much of it is dry, might I say, right? So, but from your perspective, I'd love you to tell our listeners what has stuck out in your mind about what we found out since the inquiry began.
Well, three huge things. First of all, what we learned in a pile of documents is that the election monitors that were set up by Justin Trudeau's government, these are bureaucrats that were gathering intelligence on a daily basis during the writ, especially in 2021. We heard that they were getting a lot of reporting that Chinese Communist Party-controlled social media and media in Canada and China were rolling out big disinformation narratives, specifically targeting the Conservative leader, Aaron O'Toole, essentially calling him an anti-Chinese racist, pure falsehoods to discourage especially Chinese diaspora voters in Canada from voting for O'Toole and the Conservatives. And again, Kenny Chiu out in Richmond, BC, the incumbent Conservative, because Mr. Chiu had tabled a private member's bill asking for a transparency register around any foreign agent activity. He was attacked and again smeared as an anti-Asian racist. Remember, Mr. Chu's he's an immigrant from Hong Kong. And so we heard both from Mr. Chu and Mr. O'Toole that, look, they now know that the government of Canada knew this, did nothing to intervene, and didn't even tell these candidates that they were being smeared by Chinese communist disinformation. Mr. Chu's memorable testimony was, it was like they were watching me drown and did nothing. So that was a big revelation. On the other hand, these very same election monitors in 2019 knew something that I've reported and that not everyone believed at first, but we learned it's absolutely true. The government was getting reporting from CSIS that Chinese officials in Canada had covertly transferred about $250,000 into a network of pro-Beijing candidates and political staffers and alleged Chinese agents. These were money laundering like obfuscated transactions. And the key here is that these election threat monitors knew that some of this money allegedly was to benefit certain candidates in 2019. They did nothing to intervene, and they ruled the election free and fair. And this leads to the real bombshell for me. It's let's put it together in two parts. One, as we heard, Prime Minister Trudeau was warned before the 2019 election that his candidate, Han Don in Don Valley North, was suspected to be getting the benefit in his winning nomination of Chinese international students being directed to vote, indeed possibly even threatened to vote for Han Don and bust in at the direction of Chinese officials in Canada and through alleged proxy agents. Mr. Trudeau was warned before the election and, as he explained, believed the intelligence wasn't solid enough to intervene and ask for a new candidate in that riding. So that's a bombshell, and it leads to what I have been hammering in my reports on the Bureau. Was we learned that CSIS Director David Vigneault changed the Han Don intelligence twice after talking with Prime Minister Trudeau's national security advisor and after meeting with the Prime Minister on the second time. And I just want to end my answer here. It's really stunning to understand that a sensitive intelligence report regarding a Liberal MP was changed 2 times. And these reports have to be so thoroughly vetted before they're forwarded to senior Trudeau government security officials. And so the appearance is raised that possibly we need to ask the question, I believe, does the Prime Minister and his staff not like these reports? Was there any pressure on CSIS to change that explosive intelligence twice? And we're going to hear from David Vigneault on questions related to that.
Sam, your answer leads so perfectly in what I want to discuss here, because it does seem to me, and I'd love to know how you see this, that on Wednesday when the Prime Minister testified, he took aim at some of your reporting, right? But of course he said, well, I can't refute it unless I release declassified information. Seems convenient to me. But how would you characterize what you heard from the Prime Minister that to me sounded like he was going after your reporting?
I did hear that in the Prime Minister's evidence, and really my comment here is it's only consistent with what we've heard from the Prime Minister, his office, his political staff, and the ministers that are subordinate to the Prime Minister from the start. They have pushed back on what they call, these leaks. They have gone on leak hunters. But myself, as you know, reported this first. Also, the Globe and Mail very prominently, and a lot of stories that followed mine on the same matters. And we've heard from the start, and we heard yesterday from Mr. Trudeau that reporting on Han Don was false. But I believe if people look at the evidence table, they will see that Global News is reporting on a call Mr. Han Don allegedly made regarding the Michaels to a Chinese official. It's precisely what Global reported, which is that Mr. Han Don allegedly advised in this call that we reported on that it would help the Conservative Party to release the Michaels, and that yet the Liberal Party would benefit from some action taken to show some progress on the cases. And I'd invite again people to read Global News' story and this very, very brief condensed intelligence summary on that call tabled as evidence. They match. That's my answer. And of course, there's very sensitive documents at play here, but I don't believe that the Prime Minister is being truthful and accurate in his answers.
Briefly, to wrap up here, Sam, I want to talk about an apparent contradiction between what we heard from Chief of Staff Katie Telford last year at a parliamentary committee to what we heard this week from the Prime Minister as to whether or not does he or doesn't he read the actual documents. Do you have any insight there?
I have some insight. We know that the Prime Minister got direct briefs from CSIS Director David Vigneault in October 2022, and yet the briefing notes, the Prime Minister and his office staff on the day previous said, well, these briefing notes don't reflect very accurately what we were already told. Frankly, Elias, I don't believe that. We know, as I've seen, confidential intelligence that I won't speak deeply to, that in that meeting, certain politicians' names were raised. Mr. Trudeau, that is Prime Minister Trudeau, acknowledged, certain cases were raised, but of course that material is redacted. It can't be discussed in this, national security classified hearing. But I would just reiterate my answer is I don't believe the Prime Minister and his staff were not advised about names, allegations, funds, and just in a nutshell, the mountain of evidence we saw is the Prime Minister and his top ministers were very repeatedly, dozens of times, briefed on Chinese election interference specific to the 2019 and 2021 election, and the proof is in the action. We read the documents that say our allies have taken strong measures against election interference and foreign interference specific to China, while Canada's government has not. And the documents say Canada faces an existential threat if action is taken. And there's been no action. That's the evidence.
Sam, we got to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Great talking. Thanks.
You can read Sam Cooper's work at The Bureau. He's the founder and first journalist at The Bureau. Website is thebureau.news.